Welcome to the 7th episode of the JP Eisenhauer Show. I'm your host, JP Eisenhauer, here this week with special guest Carter Crock to talk about the top headlines in the NFL. We're going to get straight into it this week, talking about the AFC championship game with the Titans versus the Chiefs. How effective will Derrick Henry and the Titans be, and do you think they could knock off the Chiefs?
I do not think that the Titans will beat the Chiefs because they really do not have that much playoff experience on their roster. And Derrick Henry cannot be the only option for the Titans against the Chiefs because they're going to have to rely more on their passing game because the Chiefs really made a good adjustment against the Texans, limiting Deshaun Watson's run game and Carlos Hyde's run game. So the Texans had to be much more reliant on their passing game, which they struggled with because the Chiefs have a much better secondary with Tyrann Mathieu. So, I just don't see the Titans winning because the Chiefs, they have Tyrann Mathieu and a very strong secondary. So,
yeah, that Chiefs defense has been a problem. There were points in this season, and I just feel like their one big loss to a bad team was the Colts. They lost to the Colts because the Colts ran the ball and controlled time of possession. The Chiefs have one of the worst rush defenses in the league, and for a majority of the season, except for the last 4 weeks of the season, excluding the playoffs as well, because, the Texans, they were running over the Chiefs in the first half. Then they got behind because they just blew the lead with a lot of special teams mistakes. They had to start passing it more, and they had to move completely away from the run game. When you look at running teams, they're having success against the Chiefs. The Titans won the first matchup in the regular season off the arm of Ryan Tannehill. He really fits incredible in this system that the Titans are running. And when you look at Derrick Henry, this is just in the playoffs. He's had 64 rush attempts, 377 yards. He's averaging 5.8 yards per attempt. He has a rushing touchdown and he even has a passing touchdown. He's just been so dominant. And when you look at all this year, he has the rushing crown. He's had 303 attempts for over 1,500 yards, 5.1 yards per attempt, and 16 touchdowns this season. He is not only strong, he is fast, and he is one of the best backs this year. You could put him up against Christian McCaffrey, and you could definitely make a case this year that Derrick Henry might be even better.
While Derrick Henry's had a very strong playoff run for the Titans, Patrick Mahomes also had a strong game against the Texans last week. He rebounded from the Chiefs being down 24-0 to throw for 5 passing touchdowns in the second quarter and the second half to pull the Chiefs to a mighty win, 51-31 over the Texans. So Patrick Mahomes has a special arm, and he can really make things happen outside the pocket, make some pretty ridiculous throws. So the Titans are really going to have to step up, but I just see Patrick Mahomes being too much for them because Tyreek Hill, that combination can be lethal, and you've got Travis Kelce who can really, cause a lot of damage in the underneath game and pick up a lot of yards after the catch. So I just feel like the Chiefs has too many weapons on offense, and it's going to be too much for the Titans to stop. And the Chiefs, compared to a team like the Ravens, they just have more playoff experience.
Yeah, obviously playoff experience is a little bit of a factor, and that kind of goes into our next topic. How much will experience be a factor in the NFC championship game when you have Jimmy Garoppolo in really his first season fully starting because he's been injured versus Aaron Rodgers and the Packers?
I feel like experience will be a big factor in this game because a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's been there, done that, he's won a Super Bowl, he's just been in the playoffs routine year after year and carried teams with minimal experience to veterans, and he's just been able to really guide this team, which has only a few true stars like Davante Adams, because they're really relying on a receiving core that's led by first-year and second-year guys and Davante Adams. So a guy like Aaron Rodgers is really going to be a boost for the Packers in this game because he really just has so much invaluable experience to teach these rookies and second-year guys. So they can feel more comfortable in a big game like this against the 49ers.
Yeah, I feel like experience won't really be such a huge factor at the quarterback position because when you look at it, there's inexperience on both sides. You have a first-year head coach for the Packers. You have Mike Shanahan, he's been around the league enough. He had the Super Bowl run with the Falcons when they eventually blew a 28-3 lead. But that is playoff experience, and I feel like both sides don't have a lot of it. I mean, when you look at the Packers' number 2 receiver this year has been Lazard throughout the playoffs. I mean, there's really not so much experience to where it'll be such a huge factor that the Packers have so much more experience, so they're going to win the game. I feel like in this game, the 49ers blew the Packers out the first time. I think the major thing is going to be, can the 49ers replicate it, or have the Packers found a way to fix it? I don't think experience will play too much of a factor in that. I feel like sometimes experience, while it is important, it's a little bit overrated. Not like that it's not important at all, but just it's not the end-all, be-all if you're going to win a playoff game or not.
I agree with that. But experience, it's everything in the playoffs because you really need to rely on your quarterback to be a leading guy for this team. And, I just feel like Rodgers' experience is really just going to put the Packers over the top in this one.
One thing I think is a huge factor, though, in the playoffs especially, is home field advantage. What's your view on the importance of home field advantage?
I feel like home field advantage is the most overrated topic in the NFL because these guys have played in big environments in college all the way up through the NFL, and they're used to big crowds like this and big games. And I really don't see it being too much of a factor because the 49ers went into Lambeau earlier this year and won. So they really showed that, the Lambeau, the tradition, I mean, it's there, but it didn't cause much of a problem for the 49ers the first time they came, and I don't see it being any different in this one.
Yeah, this one's going to be played at the 49ers, and then the Chiefs will be hosting the Titans. I think home field advantage is huge. It's a different thing during a regular season game. It's a whole nother thing when it's a playoff game. When you're going to almost definitely sell out for both of these stadiums, it's going to be packed, especially the crowd noise. When you're trying to make signals and calls at an offense and you can't hear the play call of the quarterback, that's huge. Especially because when you look at just snapping the ball, you'll see how many false starts, how many delay of games, how many times they have to take timeouts because they don't want to get a delay game because the center just can't hear him. I mean, you could see, I'm sure we'll see this Sunday, the quarterback back there clapping his hands as loud as he can, lifting his foot as high as he can, trying to get his center's attention to snap the ball. It's such a big factor that I think is so underrated. Like, there's playing LSU, and then there's playing LSU in Death Valley. And there's playing the Chiefs, and then there's playing the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Arrowhead has the record for the loudest stadium crowd just screaming. It's incredible. I mean, when you look at these atmospheres, they just help boost your team when you have that crowd behind you. I feel like it really does help, especially in the playoffs when you need every little advantage you can have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and guys like Aaron Rodgers are going to really help the Packers to make this home field advantage for the 49ers not matter as much because Rodgers is used to big crowds. He's been playing in it his whole career at home and away. So I feel like that's really going to help the Packers out to really just stay calm in a big environment like Levi's Stadium because the 49ers, they've had some really loud crowds lately with a lot of their fans coming back after some poor last few seasons. So, I feel like Rodgers is really going to limit the home field advantage for the 49ers and help them out a lot.
Yeah, and on home field advantage also, you see the home team disproportionately wins most of the time in the record for total playoff. And also, going back to experience, when you look at this year, it's really been the year of the younger quarterbacks. You see all the younger quarterbacks beating out the veterans. And I feel like these are going to be some great games. I think 3 of these teams we did not expect to be here. I think a lot of people expected the Chiefs to be here, but the Titans were a huge surprise. The Packers were a huge surprise with a first-year head coach. Even though they've had Aaron Rodgers, the past 2 seasons have been pretty bad, and we never knew what we were going to get with the 49ers because of Jimmy Garoppolo's health. But these 3 teams put it together, and then obviously the Chiefs staying consistent. That's going to be it for this week. Special thanks to Carter Crock for joining me this week on the JP Eisenhauer Show. Remember to join us next week when I'll reveal my top 5 at each position, the 1.0 version of it. This will be the top 5 college football players at each position. It has already been made and will be released next week, and we'll get Connell Scruggs and Andrew Feeney's reaction to my top 5, and we'll see what they think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week on the JP Eisenhower Show.